right, class, go ahead and put that homework away. Great job on getting it completed. You can go and take out your books and a sheet of paper because you're going to need that today. But just leave it there on your desk for right now. Look up here on the board, and I have an expression, x plus 2y minus z. We've all seen this, and some of y'all are kind of thinking, okay, what does she want us to do with that? And then I have my semicolon, which we know kind of means if x equals 3, if y equals 2, and if z equals 1. So what is this telling us to do, Jobin? To substitute them in. That's exactly right. And what do we call that? What is the specific technical name that we want to use for that, Maya? That's right, evaluation. So this is a problem of evaluation. Sometimes we're going to have problems and we get a number and it's equal to a variable, and that's how we can know to sub it in or to evaluate it. So let's go ahead and evaluate this expression. And Mark, how are we going to evaluate this? What is our first step? You want to go ahead and put the 3 in for the x. And that makes perfect sense because if x equals 3, we can just go ahead and sub it in. Great job. Joy, what would be the next thing to do? Put the 2 in for the y. So we would have 2, and I'm going to use parentheses to make sure that we don't get it mixed up. And then we have one more step, Maya, and you say to subtract 1. And we want to subtract 1 because z is equal to 1. Well, now it's nice and simple. We don't have any unknowns up here. We don't have any variables. What is the next thing to do, Tiffany? Use the order of operations to solve. So first things first, what comes first in our operations? Mark, parentheses. So you want to go ahead and have 3 plus 4 minus 1. And now that we've taken care of our parentheses, everything is plain and simple. We're just going to go across. So 3 plus 4 class minus 1 is 6. That is exactly right. So we've looked at our evaluating, and we're going to be using that a lot. And we're going to use that all the time through life. You're going to get something and you have to let it take the place of something so that we can problem solve or do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So what about equations? When we have maybe we have something to evaluate, but we have an equation, and it's set equal. What are some steps that we want to use to solve our equation? What is that first step, Tiffany? Simplify. We always simplify our problem to get it ready to go. It's not really ready to solve until it's simplified. What is the next step, Jobin? Identify the unknown. Is it an x? Is it a y? What are we doing with it? That's right. And then what is the next step? So we've simplified and we have identified our unknown. What are we going to do to get our unknown to figure it out, Joy? You're going to get it alone by doing opposites, and she went ahead and added in there, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And that is exactly right. And then once you do that, you just solve, and don't forget, we always check our equations. That is of utmost importance to make sure that we got the right answer. So you all have a pretty good handle on how to evaluate and how to use our algebra. And today we're going to take our algebra skills and we're going to use them with something else. And this is one of my favorite things to do. I remember when I was your age and I learned how to do this, and I thought it was really cool. How many of you like to do puzzles? Okay, I see a few hands. I'm not really the puzzle doer because it just takes too long and I'm not very patient all the time with puzzles. But I know some people that do puzzles, and they do it one of two ways. A lot of times they'll get their puzzle out and they'll look at the box as they put the puzzle together. But then sometimes people will not use the box at all. They don't want to know what the puzzle looks like, so they have no reference, and they just have to do it. Well, we can almost see the box as being a tool. You know, if you're doing that puzzle, you can look at the box and you have a tool to kind of help you get through it. That's a lot like how we've been doing word problems. We do word problems all the time in our sharpening skills with our arithmetic. And that's a great tool, but what happens when you can't use the box? What happens when it's not just arithmetic that's going to solve the word problems? You're given lots of things, but you can't just multiply and divide and then have the answer that you're looking for. Well, that's where we have a new tool to add to our selection, and that is algebra. We have been using algebra for a reason. We've been learning to do it. We've been learning how to solve equations so that we could eventually take something that would otherwise be unsolvable, and we can use our algebra algebra to just clip right through it. And we have a few steps to help us know how to solve these. A few things we want to follow to help us learn how to set up equations to get to the answer that we're looking for. And these steps are very important. Look up here on the board or on our screen, and you'll see we're going to go through a few of these steps, and these are steps you want to get drilled into your mind. So go ahead and write them down on your paper, because we're going to be referring to them and we're going to be looking at them all through the class and even tomorrow and the days to come. So the first step, when we're giving some words and they're wanting us to look for something, it's a word problem and we don't want to know. Well, the first thing you have to do is read it. And we do that with our word problems already. Y'all know you can't solve a problem unless you read it. And sometimes it helps to read it through a few times. But first we're going to look at what they give us and we're going to determine. Well, what are we going to determine? We want to determine what is it that we're looking for. And we want to determine how many things are we looking for. Sometimes in our word problems, they're looking for how much of something or how many chairs. Well, we need to know how many things that we're looking for. And once we've determined what it is we're looking for, we're going to represent it. What does represent mean, Jobin? Okay, that's a great answer. He said it means we sometimes have reps for things that come around to our school. It means to put something in, to show it, to display it so we know what it is. We are going to use all kinds of letters. I usually just use an X or a Y, but maybe you'll want to use your favorite letter, whatever it is. So we want to represent it with a letter. So maybe our letter is B, and we know that B represents what we're looking for. It represents what it is that we determine. The next step is going to be to form. We're going to form an equation. We'll take an equation and we'll put it together, and then once we have the equation, we can just do, you know what it is, the next step, we can just solve. And then after we solve, you know what we always do with our equations is to check them. So we're going to continue using that check to make sure that we have some of our answers right. Go ahead and look on your books at page 142. And you'll see that all of these steps are also listed for you. So you all just wrote those down in just a simple bulleted list. If you ever need more explanation when you're doing your homework, you can look on page 142. And it tells you to determine the number or numbers that are being found. And then we're going to represent, once again, with each number. Then we make that equation, and then from there, you have it. The easiest steps are the last two, the solve and check. Y'all know how to do that. So today we're really going to be working on determining, representing, and forming our equation. I have a problem up here that says 5 times a certain number is 155. And the question is, what is the number? So we know that we're looking for a number. That is what I have read. That is what I have determined. I'm looking for one number. It says, what is the number? So I know that it's only one. So I'm going to go ahead and I like to take number, and I'm going to have X is equal to a number. I know that much. From what it's told me, I know that a number is equal to X. So I chose X to represent the number. Well, I have some more information up here. It is 155. What does is mean sometimes? We've been going through our different, yesterday we did a chart of 3 times 4 less a number, and we fill it in. So we're going to be using those skills to get to where we're going. So is always equals means equals. So I'm going to go ahead and write my equal sign up on the board because we know we're going to have an equation. And we know that it is 155. So I can go ahead and put 155 up here. Mark, make sure your eyes are up here on the board. So I have half of the equation already. I already have the other side. And I know that I have a number. So I'm going to read it again and see if I can get a little bit more information from what they've given me. 5 times a certain number is 155. So I know that 5 times this number, my number x. So I can say 5x because we know that times a number means multiplication. So I can have 5x equals 155. So now I can just solve this nice and easy. We know how to do equations, and we've been doing them for several days now. So I'm going to get up here and I'm going to say everything is simplified, and now I just need to get the unknown alone by doing opposites. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 5 to both sides. So that will give me x equals, and 5 goes into 155 31 times. So I think that my number is 31. So what is the number? Is 31. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to write 31 right here because I think that's what it is. But I can be sure. Maybe you're going to do this on a quiz or a test and you're not positive if the answers that you came to are correct. Well, you can just come right here and we're going to evaluate, just like we practiced earlier. 5 times 31 is equal to 155. So if I do 31 times 5, I see that it is 155. So 155 equals 155, and I know that I did my problem correctly. So we're going to erase this, and I have another one that is very similar, but it has some different wording, it has some different things. So we're going to start over with our process to determine, to represent, to form, and to solve. Let's see what that next one is. So this one is worded a little different. We have some different things we need to look at and to understand. So it says the sum of twice a number and 11 is 45. So we're going to go ahead, and I just like to take apart the whole sentence to break it down and to put what I have on the board. So first of all, we're going to determine how many numbers we have. Maya, how many things do we need to represent up here? 1. You are correct. It says, what is the number? The sum of twice a number. That's the only thing that's kind of leaving us not wondering what there is. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. You should be doing this on your papers. We're going to go ahead and say x equals the number. What is that number? We don't know yet, but we know that it is x. So we can work with that. So we have determined, now we need, and we've represented it with x, so now we need to form the equation. That's where we have to look at it and start gathering little bits of information. Kind of like a puzzle piece, we're getting all the pieces and putting it together to make one big equation. So we know that it's going to be an equation, and we have our is, and what is it going to be equal to, Jobin? 45, that's right. So we'll have is equal to 45. We have that much. If you can't get anything else, you know it's equal to 45. You have one side of your equation. So we have the sum of twice a number and 11 is 45. So we've got our is 45. You can almost X that out of the sentence. And we have our number. What does sum mean, Tiffany? That's right, sum means addition. So I'm going to go ahead and put an addition sign up here because I know that I'm going to have addition somewhere in there. So now we can look at it. It says twice a number. Well, twice, if we said 5 times a number, well, twice a number is the same thing. So we're going to have, we know that this is 2x. So we're going to go ahead and put 2x up here. And then we just have one more thing to fill in. We have twice a number plus 11 because we know it's twice the number and 11. So that's our sum. And now we have a nice equation that we know how to simplify and we know how to solve. So we'll go ahead, and does this need to be simplified any further, Mark? Is there anything we can do? No, it is ready to go. So what's the first step that I should do, Tiffany? I should subtract 11, and that is exactly right. So that'll give us 2x is equal to 34. Now we just have one last thing to do to get our unknown alone, and we're going to do it by the opposite. And Joy, what is the opposite of 2x? To divide. That's right. So we'll have 2 divided by 2x is equal to 17. So that's our number. Let's see if it is right. I'm going to go ahead and put it up here so I don't forget. You might think, well, what is the point in putting it up there right now? As we go on and as we do more of these, we're going to have multiple lines, so we need to make sure that we're completing the whole problem. So let's go ahead and check. We're going to evaluate this equation at 17. So 2 times 17 plus 11 equals 45. What is 2 times 7, class? That's right, 34 plus 11 is equal to 45. 34 plus 11, Jobin? 45. So we know that we have done it correctly, and our number is 17. That's what we're looking for. That's what the answer is. Go ahead and look on page 143 and do numbers 1 and 2 at your desk. Those are set up a lot like the ones we've already done, so use those steps to determine, to represent, form, and solve. Don't forget to check to see if you got the right number. Jobin, you can put number 1 on the board, and Mark, you can put number 2 at the board. The rest of you be working diligently at your desk. Yes, Maya, you may use the restroom. Right, if you're having troubles getting your equation set up, go ahead and look at the sentence, read it a couple times, and break it down. Get all of the pieces you need to make the whole equation. All right, I think we're ready to go. Jobin and Mark have finished theirs at the board. So Jobin, go ahead and show us number 1 and tell us why you set your equation up, and then just tell us what number you got. You don't have to tell us how you did your equation. I agree with the job, and you should have gotten 92 as your answer. I'm sorry, you should have gotten 23 as your answer, and that's what he had. He saw that he just had one number that he needed to represent as 4 in. Great job, and you can have a seat. Mark, go ahead and show us number 2. Class, do you agree with n equals 38? He chose n for number. I like that. I agree, it is 38. You did a great job, Mark. You can erase that and have a seat. All of the problems that we've looked at so far, the word problems, have only had one thing that we were finding. You know, we found 4 times one number, and we found the other equation that had -11. That one, it just had one number, but maybe we'll have some once in a while that have something different. Maybe they're asking for a couple numbers, and we're going to do the exact same process, but there's going to be maybe an extra step. So look up here on the board, and we already did that one. We're going to look at this one. Separate the number 24 into 2 parts so that one number is twice the other number. If the first time you read that, you think that's a lot of information. What am I going to do with that? Well, we're going to go just like we have been, and we're going to go step by step, and we're just going to take piece by piece out of our sentence. So separate the number 24 into 2 parts. So first we need to determine how many things do we need to represent. Well, we know right off the bat that we have 2 numbers because it says into 2 parts. So that's easy. They almost gave it to us. So now I can't just write number. I need to denote it somehow. So I'm going to write number 1 and number 2. So I'm just going to have my equal signs because we know they're going to be equal to something. So it's going to be number 1 and number 2. Everybody agrees with me, we have 2 parts. So it says separate 24 into 2 parts. We can scratch out the 2 parts because we have it done. So that one number is twice the other number. So we have some information about our 2 parts. We have one that has the least amount of information, and we have one that has the most information. Well, it's good for us. In this case, we can make it whichever one we want it to be. So I want number 1 to be the one with the least amount of information. And all we know is that it's x. That's all we know. But we know that the second number, number 2, is twice number 1. Well, twice means multiplication, so I can just write 2x. So just like that, I have both of my numbers represented. Number 1 is x, number 2 is 2x. And then we know that it is 24. It's the whole number. So we know that's what our equal sign is going to be equal to 24. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. So we have number equals 24. Well, what am I doing with these two numbers? Separate it into 2 parts. So if I have 2 parts, I know that I need to be able to put those 2 parts together to get 24. And if I'm putting something together, I am adding. So we're going to take what we have, and we're going to have x plus 2x equals 24. And there we have an equation that we know how to solve. But is this simplified all the way, Tiffany? It is not. We need to go ahead and write 3x is equal to 24. And now we're going to get our unknown alone by doing opposites. We're just going to divide by 3, and that'll give me x equals 8. So I'm going to go ahead and I see that I have x up here, and I know that it's equal to 8. Now you see why we put this up here. Because if I turn this in on my test and say that x is equal to 8, well, even if 8 is right, you're only going to get so much credit because it's asking for 2 numbers. So the way we solve to get number 2 is we know that it is 2x. So we can evaluate, since we know that x is 8, we can do 2x, 2 times 8, which is 16. So our numbers are 8 and 16. And we know that both of these should give us the grand total of 24. And 8 plus 16, class, is 24. So we know that that checks out. We have 8 and 16. Go ahead, and we have some more problems like that where we're just separating and taking the information that we have, but we have 2 numbers that we're keeping track of. So go ahead and look over on page 144, and let's do 9 and 10. You're doing the exact same thing, just with 2 numbers now. Joy, you may spit your gum out and see me after class. Remember, as you're looking at these, you just need one piece of information at a time. You don't have to get it the whole equation at one time. Joy, please put number 9 on the board, and Maya, put number 10 on the board. The rest of you keep working diligently on those 2 problems. Joy and Maya are finishing up at the board. And it looks like everyone is finishing up on their papers. Great job. Okay, Joy, you did number 9. Everybody go ahead and look at Joy's problem and see if your problem on the paper matches hers. Go ahead, Joy, and show us how you got your equation. So Joy got 9 equals 16, not 9, she got that her number 1 is equal to 16, and the second number is equal to 20. Great job, Joy, way to keep that you had 2 parts and to get both of those answers. That looks great, and we can see that it checks. You can have a seat. It'll erase that and have a seat. Maya, go ahead and show us number 10. Okay, Maya got n is equal to 22, and that is correct, but is she missing something, Mark? She is. She's missing that second number. So Maya, go ahead and show us how you're going to find that second number. You have everything you need. N minus 6 is 16. That's correct. So that's a caution. Be sure that if you have 2 numbers, 2 things being represented, that you find both of them in order to receive full credit. Good job, Maya. You can erase that and have a seat. Now the next set that we're going to do is one of my favorites because it actually seems like it's a real thing. Like we're actually solving something instead of just finding random numbers. We're actually putting something with the numbers that we're finding. So go ahead and look up here on the screen. I have this one up here as well. I have a problem with some names. So now it's getting a little more personal. We feel like we're actually solving something for someone. So Maria is 3 years younger than her brother Juan. The sum of their ages is 27. How old are Maria and Juan? So first of all, what is our first step job in when we're doing these word problems with equations? That's right, we want to determine how many things do we have. And how many do we have, Jobin? 2. Well, how did you know that? Because it's Maria and Jobin. So they made it easy for us. They told us that we need to find how old Maria and Jobin are. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here and write Maria and Juan. And we know that they are equal to something. They have to have some kind of age. So let's look and see which one do we know the least about. What are they telling us the least about? And they're telling us the least about Juan. All we know is that, well, we have Juan, and we need to figure out how old he is. So for Juan, I'm going to come over here and put X, because that's all we know about Juan is that he is a certain age. We also know more about Maria. How do we know more about Maria? Well, we know that she's 3 years younger than Juan. So younger, is that less or more, Maya? Younger is less, and so less would be subtraction. So we know that she is, whatever Juan is, she is 3 less than that, so we would write that X minus 3. Well, now our equation is starting to come together. We have some parts to put together, but there's one last thing. We don't know, what is it equal to? Well, it tells us the sum of their ages is 27. So just like I did in that very first one, the sum of their ages, so we have 27 over here, and we know that this is a sum. So to keep it equal, everything over here must be a sum. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my addition sign. Why am I going to use an addition sign, Joy? Because sum equals addition. That's exactly right. So I have my addition sign, and I already know that these 2 things have to be what's going here, so I don't even have to worry about what to do with them because I already have my addition sign ready to go. So I'm going to go X plus X minus 3. Let me make that make this a little bit neater. X plus X minus 3. And now we're just going to solve this like we normally would. Just simple equation. First thing to do, Jobin, combine my x's. So I'm going to get 2x minus 3 equals 27. Tiffany, what's the next step? You want to add 3? I agree. 2x plus 3 to both sides is going to give us 30. And now we're just going to get our unknown along by doing opposites. And we're going to divide 2. And we know that x will give us 15. Okay, I'm done. Nope, that's right. Not quite. I see all. We have part of the puzzle, but not all of it. We want to know how old Both of them are. So we know we've got to find where x is. So we know that 1 is 15. I'm going to write it right here beside Juan's name. We know that Juan is 15. But what about Maria? Well, we can just evaluate x minus 3. So it's going to be 15 minus 3. I'll show that just so you don't get lost. That is going to be equal to 12. So we can go ahead and put our 12 right there. Now, how do we know if we got their ages right? We can go ahead and add them together to see if they should equal 27. Go ahead and do 15 plus 12 on your paper if you have it in your head. Jobin, I see your hand. What is 15 plus 12? It is 27. So go ahead, and we're going to do one of these together. Go ahead and do number 14 at your desk. I'll give you just a few seconds to work on that one, and then we will move on. You are finding Jordan and Alex's age. How old are the both of them? Okay, let's walk through this. Tiffany, how many things are being represented here? You say 2, and what are they? They're Jordan and Alex. That's exactly right. So what did you do, Joy, to make this equation? What did your equation look like? X plus 7 equals 33. That's what everyone should have had. And then you just solve. So how old is Jordan, Mark? He is 13. So that must mean that Alex is how old Maya? He is 20. That is exactly right. So you can see when we're doing these equations, they're kind of fun. And I know some of you might be thinking, well, that was easy. I didn't need to set up an equation. I can just do that in my head. But we always want to set up an equation because one day we're going to have a bunch of parts, we're going to have a bunch of different variables, and we won't be able to solve it without an equation. So tonight during your homework, make sure you're writing it down, representing everything, and setting up that equation. Great job on that today. You can put your books away and go ahead and take out your homework notebooks. You'll be doing sharpening skills 2 through 20 even. Sharpening skills 2 through 20 even. You are dismissed.